What's up, guys? It's MB Boxing, and I just finished up watching Shavkat Rakhimov versus Joe Cordina, and this was a 12-rounder for the IBF Super Featherweight World Championship, and this fight was Saturday, April 22nd, from the Cardiff Arena in Cardiff, Wales, and this fight was broadcasted on DAZN, and in this fight, Joe Cordina was able to get a split decision victory over Shavkat Rakhimov. So I personally scored this bout 116-111 in favor of Joe Cordina. And the three judges scored this bout 116-111 in favor of Rakhimov, 114-113 in favor of Joe Cordina, and 115-112 also in favor of Cordina. So this was a pretty high-intensity world title fight. The earlier rounds, they had a very high output. They kept up a pretty good fight throughout. Very good fight, I would say. Definitely wasn't a boring fight at all. There was a knockdown as well. And it was a pretty good fight overall. Like I said, I had it in favor of Joe Cordina. So just to break down my scorecard, the first round I just edged it to Joe Cordina. Rakhimov was stalking a bit, but I thought that Joe Cordina just edged the round slightly. So I gave the first round to Cordina. However, the second round was a pretty big round for going to the fight, the challenger in Joe Cordina. But now he's a two-time world champion after this fight. But in the second round, he scored a big knockdown. So Cordina landed a right hand, and then trying to block that right hand, Rakhimov sort of dropped his guard a bit, but then Cordina caught him with a left hook that grazed like his temple, and he went down to the canvas. It was a nice shot from Cordina. Very nice left hook that landed, and it dropped him. So it was a big 10-8 round for Joe Cordina. Then in the third round, I also gave it to Joe Cordina. It was a very high-paced first 3 rounds, but I mean, Joe Cordina, I thought it favored him. He had a very strong latter half of the third round. The earlier part was more in favor of Rakhimov, but I thought that Cordina had the better work late. However, in the fourth round and the fifth round, I gave the fourth and fifth to Rakhimov. I thought Rakhimov started to rise up. He started to come forward a bit. He started to have much better work, so I gave him rounds 4 and 5. Then in the sixth round, I just etched it to Joe Cordina. It was a pretty close round. I mean, he did much better dealing with the aggression that Rakhimov did have in rounds 4 and 5, and I slightly gave him the sixth round because he had better defense compared to the other rounds and also got some of his own shots off. But then rounds 7 and 8, I thought they were pretty clear rounds for Joe Cordina. Rakhimov's eyes started to close up really fast in rounds 7 and 8, and Joe Cordina really started to land more shots, specifically with that right hand. I mean, he started to get it across more, started to do some damage to the face of Rakhimov. So I gave round 6 and 7 to Joe, or round 7 and 8, I should say, to Joe Cordina. But then in round number 9 and round number 10, I gave them both to Rakhimov. I mean, Rakhimov, despite his eye getting pretty bad in the fight, started swelling a lot. He actually had some very nice work in rounds 9 and 10, and specifically in round 10. Round 10 was a big round for him. Came forward, did a good job being aggressive. In round 9, he was also aggressive, but Cordina had better defense in the 9th, but still I thought that Rakhimov was much more active in rounds 9 and 10. Then round 11, this one I thought that Cordina landed the better blows in the round. Rakhimov wasn't as aggressive compared to the other rounds. Rounds 9 and 10, his output was much less. That's why I edged it to Cordina. Cordina, I thought, had the better work in the 11th. Then in the 12th round, it was a pretty competitive round. I feel like it could have maybe went either way, but I edged it to Joe Cordina. But when the round was ending, I mean, the crowd was obviously cheering for their man Cordina in Wales. It was a pretty big atmosphere in Wales there. I believe it might have been a sold-out crowd. A lot of fans showed up for the fight, obviously, for their man trying to become a two-time world champion. And this is a big win for Joe Cordina. I mean, he had to prove something here because when he won the title, he only won it by a second-round knockout. So it was kind of, maybe this guy's good. Maybe this guy's just jumped into this really quickly, just with a one-punch knockout. Maybe he's not ready for it. But this fight really proved that Joe Cordina is definitely someone you don't want to mess with. I mean, he fought really good. against a very top-tier fighter in Shavkat Rakhimov. Defeated him, took the belt back, now a two-time world champion. So this goes into question, what is next for him? Joe Cordina, like I said, still undefeated, now a two-time IBF world champion, getting that title back. For Cordina, I really don't know what could be next for him. The super featherweight division, there's a lot of options. There's really a lot. There's a lot of guys in both promotions. There's a lot of guys in the 130-pound division on the zone. There's a lot of guys in the 130-pound division at Top Rank. And PBC. The division's very spread out compared to other weight classes. So, Joe Cordina there really could be a lot from here for him to go off of. Maybe he could unify in a few fights. Maybe he could fight a very high level fighter who's on the zone. Joe Cordina definitely has a lot of options, I think, coming up in his career, considering he did win this world title fight. And being that there was also a very big upset as well in the zone. Shavkat Rakhimov, he fought to win this title fight. He did fight Zelfa Barrett, so he beat Zelfa Barrett. Zelfa Barrett was also ranked high by the IBF, and before that, Shavkat Rakhimov had his draw with Jojo Diaz. Jojo Diaz moved up. There's just been a lot of things going around in this 130-pound DAZN boxing scene. So, for Cordina, we could see a lot next. We could possibly see him unify in the next few fights. In his next fight, he could take on someone who's possibly ranked top 5, top 10 in the IBF rankings. Who knows? He has a lot of options, like I've been saying. And comment down below also what you think could be next for Cordina. But as for Shavkat Rakhimov losing here for the first time in his career, this was a very tough loss, obviously, considering, it was a really good fight. He lost his title. That's obviously the tough part of this loss. And lost his O. So obviously he's going to go back to the drawing board, probably take a decent break after this fight. It was a really grueling fight, full 12 rounds. Rakhimov's face got busted up a bit. So, he's going to have to go back, work on some things in the gym, and then we might see him maybe 4 to 8 months out in 2023, maybe against someone who's a top 15 to top 10 level super featherweight, because Rakhimov's definitely at that level, definitely a top 10 fighter in there, has been in there. For Rakhimov, he before this fight he had a very good stoppage over Zelfa Barrett as well. So for Rakhimov, like I said, he's a good level fighter, and he should definitely be facing someone top 10, top 15 in his next fight, because he definitely belongs at this level and could hang with these guys there. So overall, Joe Cordina, in front of his home country, defeats Shavkat Rakhimov by split decision to regain his IBF super featherweight world title. And yeah, that's really it. I'm MB Boxing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.